Nothing in this podcast is intended as investment advice, and the people in this podcast may hold positions in the stocks they talk about. Do not buy any investment based solely on a tip or recommendation. Please do your own research.
Hello and welcome to the Sunday Roast. It's Sunday the 10th of April. Is it that time of year so quickly? I can't believe how fast it's going. It's scary, isn't it? Easter nearly approaching fast. Blink and you'll miss it, job. Been off this week down in sunny Cornwall, kicking back and chilling out. About you, Kev? Have you had a good working week while I've been away?
Yeah, it's been a good working week. We've had lots of conversations with different people. The weather's been stonking hot. It's been 36, 37, 38 degrees. It's cooled off a bit today, thank goodness. Down to
pool
28.
Office? You've been working from the pool office?
Yeah, I did yesterday and the day before for an hour or two, I have to be honest. Yeah, pool office, phone and jumping into the pool for an hour and then jumping out and doing some work. It's been good. The market's ISA season. We put a wee document out there for ISAs. So just different opportunities that were available based on our 12 stocks, or now 14 stocks actually. So yeah, I think there's a little bit more liquidity came into the end of the week in the market. So
yeah,
all good.
I mean, I haven't really been
good.
keeping much of an eye out there, but I did see that on the 6th there was a bit of an increase in volume on a lot of these stocks. So certainly that I just saw a lot of bed and ISA type trades where you see a certain number sold and then a similar number bought back in. It was very, very easy to tell some of those people who were wanting to bed and ISA those stocks that they love. So good to see. And
yeah.
we talked about this obviously last week, and we thought there would be a bit of an increase in volume. So it's all good. Anyway, we're joined by Martyn. It's been a while. Martyn Churchouse, CEO of Caerus Minerals. How are you doing, Martyn?
I'm very well, thanks, Phil. Hi, Kev.
Hi, Martyn.
Been a while, hasn't it? Yeah. And I guess in your life, a lot's happened since then in terms of company news. We've had quite a few. But before we go on to discuss that, do you want to give us listeners or even new investors a bit of a recap as to what the Carroll Mineral Resources story is all about?
Yeah, Carroll Mineral Resources, our licenses are based exclusively in Cyprus. We are a gold, copper exploration and resource development company. We have sort of hitched our wagon to the green energy transition, focusing sort of primarily on the copper. Our strategy is principally aimed at the brownfield sites. There are plenty of those in Cyprus, areas where you've got former mines, and as a consequence of that, you've got dumps, you've got tailings. And because of the incursion from the Turks in 1974, you've got a number of mines where production was sort of curtailed. So you've got multiple different resource types sitting within various brownfield licenses. And we adopted the policy of picking this ground up on the basis that we feel that we partially de-risk our exploration by knowing that we're exploring and looking for new deposits within geology where mines already exist, and therefore we know that we're in the right geological setting, and also because we know we've got dumps and we've got stockpiles that were produced in the 50s and 60s and early 70s. It's 40 odd years since then. Technology has improved dramatically, and we have an opportunity to extract residual metals from these dump materials. And of course, on top of that, we've got the benefit of the hard rock resources, some of which are, higher grade. This was left when everything shut down in 1974. But then in addition to that, we've got the lower grade resources and the oxides, neither of which were of any particular interest to the miners back in the day. We've got a fair sprinkling of licenses which sort of go from west east across the island on the Greek side of the border. Our focus in the last few months has been on the Troulli project, which was a former producing mine. And that's one where we've entered into a joint venture agreement with Bezant Resources. And we have another option agreement in place with Jubilee Metals, who are doing metallurgical test work with a view, hopefully, to building and running a plant under the terms of a separate joint venture. last week we reported our sort of maiden mineral resource estimate for Troulli. We're happy with the numbers, and whilst we're doing that, there's a lot going on the other licenses as well. So it's all good, and everything remains positive from our side.
Yeah, I saw that. I mean, to have sunk 72 diamond and open hole percussion drill holes, that's a lot of drilling over, I think, nearly 4,000 meters, isn't it, in total? It's been going on for some time now. Is it nearly a year's worth of drilling there?
But it's actually 9 months, because we didn't actually own the Troulli license. Troulli was one of the ones that we acquired within sort of 3 months of listing. So we basically turned it around in 9 months from a piece of ground with prospects to our first initial resource estimate. And, the numbers are not bad. We're happy with them so far. So 2.7 million tonnes at just over 0.75% copper equivalent, which is roughly 20,000 tonnes of copper metal. Interestingly, you can do another number if you sort of reduce the cutoff, and we come out with just under 5 million tonnes at roughly 0.5% copper equivalent. And by doing that, you get more or less the same amount of copper, but you also then claw in about 30-odd thousand ounces of gold as well. So, from our point of view, from Caerus's point of view, it's a really good foundation on which we could sort of build. In terms of upside for us, there's a lot more to come. I'm sure of that at Troulli. We've got a whole bunch of drill holes that we're still waiting for the results to come back, which is sort of sitting around the apron of the existing geological model and resource now, which should add further tonnes and tonnes metal. We know that we've got extensions to the ore body on the sort of immediate extensions, which we didn't realise we had until we did this drill program, which we picked up. We've got all those anomalies, which we've reported previously, that we partially drilled on the sort of 1.5 kilometres out towards Coquina Petra. We know that they carry metal. We've just got to drill them out now. We're going to do, in a month or so's time, we're going to do a ground geophysics program, which hopefully will pick up further targets. And then, of course, we've got Coquina Petra itself, which is a sizable target. And, that had some really impressive gold grades at surface. And the one short hole that we put in underneath picked up, indications of copper. So, I think there's a lot more to come. The other thing, of course, to not forget is that because of the location of Troulli, we picked up a number of other licenses, which we've sort of called the satellite projects, which are comfortably within trucking distance. And trucking distance in one of two respects. Possibly if, with slightly lower grade deposits where we're in a position where we can actually have dry pre-concentration on site, so that we take something up to, from 1% up to 7%, let's say, contain copper, and we can then truck that across to Troulli, and we can process it there in a central plant. Or alternatively, we've got a number of projects that we've identified in places like Anglicides and St Nicholas, where St Nicholas, there's reports there historically of resources with grades in excess of sort of 4 grams per tonne gold and plus 1% copper. And the work that we have ourselves done at Anglicides, has been coming back with plus 2% copper and good gold grades as well. Now some of that material could well be possible for us just to pick that up and take that straight to Troulli. I mean, I've sort of internally sort of set a target of 500,000 to 700,000 tonnes from Anglicides at sort of 2% copper equivalent. Yeah. That's a lot of copper.
Sure.
And that will have a significant impact on on the sort of the financials. So it's exciting. It's interesting from the point of view of the guys that are on the ground. We're now comfortable. We're not sitting back and sort of relaxing. We're now comfortable that we've got something upon which we can build. 20,000 tons of copper metal in the ground is a pretty decent start.
Yeah.
And it's not as if we're in a position where we're now going to go out and start looking at greenfield sites trying to find the next 5, 10, 15,000 tons of copper metal to add to that resource. We've got the targets lined up. We've partially drilled them. We've sampled them. We know where they are. It's now just a case of getting the drill rig back on site and we crack on. I mean, we're drilling at Anglicides now. We had some native copper at 7 meters depth in a hole the other day, which was fantastic. I mean, looks really interesting. A few more holes at Anglicides, a week, 10 days, 2 weeks maybe. And then we come straight back to Troulli and we pile into the drilling again there.
So will that be more infill drilling to try and increase the upgrade the resources so far? I mean, and also things like the mining application and licenses. Can you talk us through the sort of like the roadmap for the next, say, 6 months to a year of how things may play out?
Yeah, of course. There will be a little bit of infill drilling. There always is, and that's no bad thing because invariably that will increase the grade, and we'll see how that develops. We've got all those holes, as I said, which is sort of peripheral, where we need to get the results back from those, and there may well be some more infill to do around that as well. And then we step out and we start drilling the other targets. The test work's going well. I'm really comfortable that we've got all bases covered with the test work, based on my frequent discussions with Jubilee. Effectively we've got 3 different resource types. We've got the gold oxides, we've got the copper oxides, and we've got the copper gold sulfides. And we were always confident that the copper gold sulfides would be pretty easily processed, and we know that we can use sort of standard flotation, which is a nice, relatively cheap plant to build. It's not expensive to run. It doesn't use any chemicals or anything that's particularly unpleasant to use. The copper oxides, the work that's been done so far is really interesting because we potentially have 2 options for the copper oxides. We can actually use the same plant we use for sulfides, and we just use a process that temporarily kids the oxides that they are actually sulfides, so we can float them off. With the lower grade oxides, the work that we've done so far suggests that we can very easily put those onto a heap leach, and the recoveries look very good. The gold oxides, obviously, we don't want to be in an environment where we're using cyanide if we can avoid it. And it looks, based on provisional work that's been done, that the gold oxides can be recovered, or the gold can be recovered from the oxides using another sort of lixiviant rather than cyanide, and the recoveries look the same. The cost of the process looks pretty much identical. So the good thing is we're not going to be leaving resources in the ground. We will be able to recover copper and gold pretty much from everything down to quite low grades, which is really encouraging. And then I guess the important thing from the shareholder point of view in terms of timing is I've been talking to you about further drilling and all the rest of it. The implication might be that not much is going to happen until we've done the next round of drilling. The reality is Bezant Resources, our joint venture partner from the mining side, is now sufficiently comfortable with the first 2.7 million tons of resource for them to start the design and the mine planning process. That's obviously important. It's good for us because as soon as we've got some more definitive numbers from Jubilee, it means that we can start assigning dollars and cents to the costs and dollars and cents to the margins and working out how much this project is going to make. And we're not too far away from being in a position to do that. I think we're very close to the point now where we know what sort of plant configuration we want, but I'm not going to second guess Jubilee. They're the experts. I think we're comfortable with the mine plan. It's something we've been discussing on an ongoing basis. What remains now is for us to sort of engage further with the resource consultants so that we can get a much firmer idea on the depth to which we can mine and the strip ratios and things. The good thing, most from what we know ourselves in-house, of course, all down one side, you guys have seen the pit, all down one side, there's no stripping because as you strip, what you're doing is you're basically taking the gold oxides off the top, and then as you push back, you're then taking the sulfides out from underneath those gold oxides. And then when you push all the way back, you basically get to the edge of the hill and, the job's done. You've taken out what you need. Going in the opposite direction, as you know, down one side, you've got the entrance to the pit, so there's nothing to push back to there. Going the other side, there will be a little bit of stripping to do, but on the sort of the high wall side, most of that is dump material, which we'll take off anyway, and we'll stick that through the plant. So yeah, look, that looks pretty good. So we're now working our way to the point where we're now refining everything and getting all the data we need to be able to complete the sort of the more thorough scoping study. And once we've got that scoping study, which is not that far away, we're in a position to submit our application for the mining license. In the interim, we're communicating with the community. They're on board. They've been given multiple opportunities to object, and there have been no dissenters. Interestingly, the community a few years ago actually elected to take ownership of the mine and the surrounding ground from the state. And the reason they did that was because they wanted to ensure that the community benefited from what they recognised to be a resource. So, they're in favour of us doing something with Troulli, which is great. It's nice to have them on side. And things will improve. Dramatically. You've got all these old dumps that have been sitting there since the 60s, which are sort of leaking sulfides out onto farmland. Well, those sulfides we're going to reprocess.
From your experience with dealing with the authorities, that they're quite helpful in that, with Caerus in terms of no delays. You're not expecting any kind of protests against these mining license applications.
No. I think if there'd been any serious concerns, we'd have known something about it by now. Sure. The people that we acquired these licenses from have been working on the project for a number of years, and they have made a point of getting on with the community. We employ a number of people in the community. We take their advice on everything that we do. We have a good relationship with the local farmers and things. And some of those farmers are actually going to get land back, which, the previous operators in the 60s dumped a whole load of material on their farmland. And they'll get that back. And then, of course, we're looking at some really interesting options for a closure plan, which will benefit the village as well. There's a whole bunch of things that we're considering at this stage, but ultimately that's a decision that we'll make jointly with the community.
And the interesting thing, having been there, is this is, the report that came out to say there's 5 million tons of, roughly 5 million, 4.9 million tons of stuff, if you like. I can't even say it's all rock, because it's not. It's a combination of many, many different things. This really is probably the tip of the iceberg at Troulli, because we really haven't talked about the elephant in the room, which is 1.5 kilometers further away and possibly connected to Troulli. So do you want to say a bit about that?
It's actually very interesting because you've got Troulli and you know that you've got something there. So step back and say, right, now I'm going to start exploring and I need to add value for shareholders. Now you got two choices. You can either, throw the Hail Mary, go for broke, and put holes at sort of 200 meter, 300 meter sort of spacings all the way along what's effectively just over 2 kilometres of strike and hope that you hit something. And if you don't, you're going to lose shareholder interest because they're going to go, well, he's put 10 ball holes in and seven of them missed. So, it was always our intention to start with Troulli because, we know that we're going to hit some dirt there, which is payable, and therefore, we're adding value right from day one. Where you have to be careful is that you don't get involved in sort of keyhole exploration, where you put in a whole bunch of drill holes and then you start putting drill holes next to drill holes next to drill holes, which might give you, sexy looking numbers when it comes to a press release, but it's actually adding nothing to the value of the deposit because you're not adding tons and you're not adding tons copper either. So we've now, and don't forget, whilst we were doing Troulli, we were also putting holes, using percussion, which was a lot cheaper, but it was a good sort of scouting tool. We were drilling all of those other, or a lot of those other targets on that 1.5 kilometre strike distance. So now we're comfortable that we've got 4.9 million tonnes under our belt. We can now step out and we could start drilling all of these other targets that we've got along that sort of 1.5 Ks of strike. And the interesting thing here is we've got gossans that we've identified at surface. It's not rocket science picking up those. We've drilled them. Yeah, they've got value. Great. We can go back now and we can drill them a bit more thoroughly and work out what we've got and start to build a tonnage on each of those. We've then got Coquina Petra itself, which is a really interesting deposit. At this stage, I don't know whether Coquina Petra is going to be a gold project or a copper gold project. I don't know. Let's see what the drilling tells us. What we do know is that at surface there are some very interesting gold numbers that we've got from the sampling that we've done today. Now, whilst I've said that we've got those gossans, all the way through that 1.5 K of strike length, you've got a lot of faulting, which is sort of classic in this sort of geological setting. So it's almost like imagine a step ladder running from Troulli all the way through to Coquina Petra, and each one of those blocks between the rungs on the ladder is another ore block potentially, and some have been lifted up, some have been dropped down, some have been lifted up, some have been dropped down, and you go through all the way through to Coquina Petra. So there will be some areas of mineralization there that we have no indication that it's there at all. And that's where we're going to be using the ground geophysics in a month or so's time to pick up those structures and two, pick up those other targets. It's going to be a really interesting exercise to see what sort of tonnage we can add.
Just for the people who don't know that much about Caerus and the different options that you have on Cyprus, Troulli and the surroundings like Troulli and Anglicides and St. Nicholas, I think, are all in fairly close proximity, yeah?
Yeah.
But then we go up into the sort of slightly more mountainous area and tell us a little bit more about that, because there were originally 13 or 14 mines up there, I think. There
were, yeah. We've got sort of two principal projects on the sort of the outliers. One is, which I'll deal with first, because we put out an RNS a couple of weeks ago on this one, and that's the Marla project. Marla was an old pyrite mine, and which we've acquired. We do have a modest copper gold resource. It's possibly 500,000 tons just below surface at roughly 1% copper, and it's got decent gold values in it as well, which was left behind by the previous people in the 70s. And we've also got a load of dumps, and we've been doing some sampling of the dumps and have got some really interesting gold numbers out of those dumps. Over 50% of our samples came back above sort of 0.5 gram gold. Now, we were only able to use a hand auger, which got down to the meter and a half. These dumps are, go a lot deeper than that. And in all likelihood, because it's usually the case with these sort of projects, grade can increase at depth. And that's usually reflecting an improvement over time in the processing, technology and things that you're using. So potentially, we've got a standalone gold resource sitting there. We need to do some test work, but I don't see any reason at all why we shouldn't be able to recover gold from that. We've also got that copper resource as well that's sitting there just underground. And we've got the guys up on site who are doing the exploration now, again, looking at exactly the same sort of structural information I was mentioning earlier at Coquina Petra, looking at a whole bunch of other targets that they've identified. So that's really, that was not one of our sort of priorities, but that's really starting to look very interesting. The really big project we have is Calabasas. Calabasas, the area that we have of Calabasas, as you said, it hosts 13, 14 former producing mines. And these mines were running at grades, sort of 3% copper plus. They've largely mined out the high-grade pods, but they've left all the stockwork mineralization behind, which is the sort of 1% type copper mineralization. They also generated, when they were mining, produced a lot of dumps. And we have sampled quite a few of those dumps, and they've all been generally coming back, in the region of 0.5% copper and 0.5 gram per ton gold, which is very nice for dumps. We're very happy with that sort of number. So, again, but on a much bigger scale, potentially, we're in a situation with Calabasas where we have some easily accessible, low mining cost, good, easily recovered dumps where we can extract gold and copper. So it's a nice, easy way into future processing at Calabasas. And of course, samples of those, I should add, have been with Jubilee for some time, and they're doing all the test work, looking at sort of leachable copper and gold extraction and things. So that work's being done in the background. And now we're starting to get back onto site to start to look at drilling out some of the hard rock resources as well, which are, you've been to the Mavridia pit, you guys, you've seen the mineralization sitting in the bottom of the pit. Yeah. Where we were standing in the fresh air there, that was the sort of 3% plus high grade body that was taken out. And then the cushion of stockwork gold, copper mineralization that it was sitting on was the material we were standing on top of. So all of, that's ready to drill. The guys have been up. They have found a few really interesting targets that we're waiting for the assays and things to come back, and we'll report on those in due course. But we're quietly confident that we've got a very nice project that's starting to build quietly at Calabasas. For those people that don't know Caerus very well, that with the Troulli project that has been the biggest part of the cash burn, 50% of all direct exploration costs have been are attributable to our joint venture partners, so we get that cash back in our treasury. Jubilee is picking up a pretty substantial amount of the costs that we incurred collecting samples for them and the sample analyses that have been done. So that money's coming back in as well. So we're in a pretty good place from that point of view. We've got cash. We've got enough to continue drilling and keep adding tons of copper and ounces of gold.
Yeah, I was just looking, Martyn, at the first time you actually came on the Sunday roast, and it was about, I think it was like May the 1st or May the 2nd of last year. So it's basically less than a year, but it feels like a lot. There has been a lot has happened in that time, in those 11, 12 months. I mean, how happy is it? Of course you're happy, you're pleased with the way things are going, but do you think you've achieved more than you anticipated you would in those 11 months, looking at where you are now?
I would like to have been a bit further along, downstream with Troulli and also with the other projects. But it's the same for everybody. We were constrained by what we could do.
Sure.
We were fortunate in as much as during the sort of the lockdown, the bulk of our personnel are Cypriot and they're based on the island, so they were able to get around. But there was, we couldn't get samples anywhere or anything like that. So yeah, it would be nice to be a bit further down the track. But having said that, if you'd asked me last May, would I be happy talking to in 9 months' time if I had 20,000 tons of copper under the belt and 30,000 ounces of gold? I'd say, yeah, I think
exactly
we'd be pretty happy with
and one JV and also another potential one, with Jubilee, you're still yet to come. So I think from what you've achieved in those 11 months, as you say, with the constraints there, obviously there's been a big global pandemic, which has obviously knocked, delays everything, doesn't it? As we know, supply chain issues, and also the element of the fact that, there's also assay result. I mean, every CEO we talk to from mining companies, they're at the mercy of of these labs, of these assay labs as well, which is hindering a lot of progress.
I think the other point to make is of course, you have Colin Bird on here, and of course Colin is with Bezant, and we're picking up some really good tips off him with respect to the sort of small miner philosophy, and that has given us a lot of encouragement to go back and look at stuff in Cyprus that we were sort of originally may have dismissed, because we think, actually, hang on, we can start doing something with this now, because we're looking at that sort of small miner philosophy and some of the clever things that you can do today. And of course, this exactly the same thing applies with our interaction with Jubilee. It's music to my ears when I sort of talk to them and say, look, we've got X, Y, and Z. I'm assuming we can't do anything with that. And they say, well, no, hang on, send us some samples. I'm sure we can extract metal from that. Which is great. So it's sort of it's enabled us to be a lot. I wouldn't say braver, but we can dig a lot deeper and look at things that we wouldn't necessarily have spent too much time on.
So do you see that yourselves and Bezant and Jubilee are going to make a very good team to extract what needs to be extracted in Cyprus?
Yeah, I do. We get on well with all of the guys, and it's so far it's actually been sort of plain sailing. We enjoyed working with them. I can honestly say there's been no sort of disputes or anything, or sort of treading on toes or anything of that order. Everyone knows their roles. Everybody's very free with their information. Everything's being disseminated and properly the way it should be done. So yeah, it's a happy camp.
The big question everybody probably wants answered is, when's Jubilee and yourself going to sign on the dotted line, do you think?
Good question. It does depend on when they complete their test work. I don't think they're too far away. I think there's a bit more that needs to be done, particularly with the gold lixiviant process that they're using. And then I also, before we sign, I am keen for them to give me enough information that I can have meaningful data to go to the environmental consultant for him to complete the baseline study and the impact assessment. So that might sort of add a bit of time, but we're only a few months away.
So at Troulli, Martyn, the either 4.9 million tons or the 2.7 million tons, whichever one you want to use, how much roughly as a percentage of that is easily accessible? In other words, there's no physical mining involved. It's literally pick it up and take it to the plant.
You've got the stockpiles, you've got the tailings, and you've got the sort of the low-grade waste dumps, which may actually be bigger than we realise at the moment. The reason I say that is because it's very difficult to drill right the way down into these, because you sort of hit quite large rocks that the percussion rig can't get past. But it's well over a million tons is free dig material.
Looking at that process now, if we just look at Caerus and say you've got 20,000 tons of copper in the ground that's going to be able to be processed, and you've got 30,000 ounces of gold, and your value, I mean, I'm guessing that the sale value of those items is around $250 million US, okay? Yeah. And you're currently worth 7.3 million pounds as a company. So obviously you're going to share that amongst Bezant and amongst possibly Jubilee as time goes by. So how do you feel now that you've said this to the market? You know, that effectively this tonnage of copper and gold is worth this much money, and yet this is your share value, if you like.
Look, I think part of the problem that we suffer from, and I'm sort of stepping aside from your sort of the main point of your question, but I will come back to it. Part of the problem is because we are, a micro-cap company. Therefore, it is always difficult to get visibility. And you can spend a lot of money on PR and all the rest of it, but there comes a point in time where you have to sort of say, right, that's the amount we're going to spend, and now it's basically got to be results driven, and we have to try and get the share price up on the back of what we can discover. And hopefully people will start to see now, particularly in the next few months when we're able to start putting dollar figures to some of these things with sort of preliminary economic assessments and things like that. People can start to add value. And don't forget, you take something like Anglicides, where I'm looking at, I'm setting ourselves a target of 750,000 tonne at 2% equivalent. That's another 15,000 tonnes of copper. And if you do the maths, it all starts to add up pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's another $150 million sale price. Yeah,
precisely. And then and then because you've got a plant, you're now in a position where you might have a 250 or 200 or 300,000 tonne little deposit that's sitting out there on its way to on that 1.5k stretch to Coquina Petra, that in under normal circumstances would stay there forever. The fact that you've got stone's throw away from a fully operating plant that's sort of paid for itself means that your margin is substantial on each of those little projects that you or little deposits that you start to bring in. So yeah, we're significantly undervalued. I don't think there's much doubt about that. And we're still pretty well cashed up, and we're spending our money wisely. The money goes in the ground. And if you look at our board, we're not overpaid. We don't have.
You said that nearly laughing, Martyn.
Yeah, we don't have.
Give this man a pay rise. He's not getting paid very much.
We don't have head officers. We really are lean and mean. And the guys on the ground are the same. They're exactly the same. They know the drill.
The other thing, looking at it, I mean, just looking through some of the numbers, and I was going to go through the capital structure because I think it's something that is really useful for listeners anyway, is that 64 million shares outstanding is not a lot. And actually, since you came to market about a year ago, I think it was the 19th of March last year was when you were admitted to the main market, the standard list main market. So this is not an AIM share. You've not got the Nomad involved. But anyway, the point I'm making is that you came with around 62, 63, it wasn't much more than that. So this is not like it's been the usual dilute issue shares fund, that sort of thing. Yes, there was another round, I think, at back end of last year when there was a small amount raised in the form of a placing. But other than that, as you say, it's not run as a lifestyle company. You're very lean. And, the share price, when you look at it, I think you came to market around a 10p with the initial placing or the initial raise. And it's actually not moved. Yes, it went up to the sort of late 20s, 30s, but now it's 14p to buy. I mean, but look at what you've achieved. There's no sense in the value of the company right now. It's 9.2 million on the cap. And it just doesn't make, you can't compute that.
The silence says everything, I think.
Dead air.
I think
I think you put that very succinctly. Yeah.
Yeah. Say no more.
Yeah.
I mean, what I'm looking at now from the figures you're just giving me there, with $250 million of metal in ground, $150 million coming from the other thing. What was it? Anglicides. That's 450 million. Let's say there's 100 million between, the 1.5 kilometers to Cornina Patra, is it? You've got $500 million of in-ground metal that isn't going to need a mine constructed to get it out. It's already there. You might have to, dig a few holes, but basically it's close to surface. Everything is going to be dug out, and you're going to have a plant there. Now, if that can't make money and make, Caerus Minerals several £1 million a year, then, something's going to be seriously wrong.
I think you're right. I mean, I comes with the usual sort of health warning, of course, that, we still got to finish the drilling at Anglicides, but from what we see, definitely looks the tons are there, and we've drilled these anomalies on the way out to Cornina Patra, and we've hit decent numbers. So there's no reason why we shouldn't add, further tons as we go along. So yeah, it's and you're right. And of course, the other thing to bear in mind is that the bar keeps getting lowered, because once you've got Troulli up and running and you've got your plant paid for, that's a whole bunch of sort of capex that sort of comes off, and we've got no other debt or anything, and anything else that you find, you can start looking, you can start lowering the cutoff grades, and you can start looking at raising the strip ratios and doing whatever to take slightly more expensive feedstock to mine, because you're now basically just down to the operating costs of running a plant and mining.
The share price is massively undervalued just on Troulli. And actually, we've got Calabasas, which is many factors the size of Troulli, to be added to this. And it's not like it's, hundreds of kilometers away. It's I don't know how far away it is, but it's only 20 or 30 kilometers when we drove it anyway. Yeah,
look, I think we, with regard to Calabasas, we could probably have done better in terms of the way we've sort of promoted Calabasas. But it's a tricky one, because, 14 former producing mines, where do you start? I mean, you can bog shareholders down in detail and give them all the names of all the different mines and everything. And we're giving them too much information. So, hopefully now that we've got guys who are up there, sort of putting in the hard yards and doing all the sampling and things, we can actually start to look at Calabasas in a bit more detail and elaborate, select key projects out of there and start to give shareholders a bit more of a sort of a flavour of and the scope that we have up there, which, as you say, is substantial.
I've got Phil's investment cases ready.
Okay, go Phil.
Main market, low market cap, close to IPO price, potentially multiple $100 million assets, mining license application to be submitted in a safe jurisdiction of Cyprus, one joint venture and a second potential joint venture. It's not a lifestyle company. Think Arkwright from Open All Hours and buy it now, whatever you do.
Thank you for coming on, Martyn. I think that says it all.
Martyn Churchouse, CEO of Caerus Minerals, thanks very much for your time.
Thanks very much, guys.
And knowing what your opinion of Caerus Minerals is, but do you want to give us an opinion of it?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously been an explorer, which is fast moving towards being a producer. I don't want to give timelines, but I think in the not too distant future, we're going to be producing copper and gold revenues from this, especially from Troulli. I mean, you and me have both been there, and it's pretty obvious it's not a hard ask to put a plant there and get it going. And the potential then to go along that strike for 1.5 kilometers is vast. And from what Martyn was saying, there are lots of other close opportunities that are going to add to the total take as well. And then, that's the baby. Calabasas is the daddy, if you like. So Calabasas is going to be huge. to say the thing's only valued at £8 or £9 million right now just seems ridiculous. I was saying this to somebody else the other day. I think that resource plays are going to double, triple, maybe quadruple and more for some of them in the next period of time, because basically the stocks haven't gone up, and if anything, they've gone down when the actual resource values or to buy these things has rocketed. And there's been a total disconnect. The small cap stocks have gone down while the resource values have been going up. So there's a total disconnect, and it has to happen, Yeah. So it's going to come, I think.
Good.
So yeah,
I think I concur with all that. Moving on to another undervalued gold play, actually, this one, pure gold play, is Conroy Gold. We're just starting at the beginning of the week. On Monday, there was an RNS out there acknowledging prospecting licenses in Longford Down Massif. 3 new prospecting licenses granted, gold and base metal potential licenses to be transferred to the JV company and JV holdings in Longford Down Massif to reach circa 1,000 square kilometres. Do you want any comments on that one?
Yeah, the market hasn't got it, has it? I mean, the market just truly hasn't got the size and the potential of this company. It has been messing about trying to find this gold for 15 plus years. It's finally got it. It's finally got a joint venture with a Fortune 500 company in Demir Export. It's finally just been paid €1 million for the privilege. They're going to have to earn in spending €10 million plus. It's got a market cap, 12-13 million pounds, and potentially 20 to 22 million ounces of gold. Now let that just settle in. That is currently 4 or 5 times the size of Greatland Gold, okay, in terms of what they have already got in their JORC. It already has 500,000 ounces on its JORC report. It's in a good jurisdiction in Ireland. All the licenses have been transferred to the joint venture, and they're going to drill 3,000 meters in the next month. The Broken Oak, which came out, I think, on Thursday, I think it was, has £1.68 as its first target after the drilling of the 3,000 meters, which is going to happen in the next 2 months. And it currently sits at what, 30 something pence, 33p?
Yeah, it's a 13.9, just about 14 million market cap. So I think the market, when this one goes off, it will be like fireworks, I think. Yeah,
there's only 39 million shares, and they're pretty tightly held. So as was it Paul Johnson when we interviewed him there, who's a TR1 holder with his wife from Power Metal Resources, this is going to be in the pounds. I have no doubt, no matter what the situation is, there's gold in this situation. They're going to find it, increase the amount on the JORC, and it's going to be worth several times what it is now.
It's only a matter of time. I think the patient will be rewarded. Those who sit and hold and believe in this story will surely be rewarded. And we're going to be going out to site, which I'm looking forward to at the end of April. So that's all booked and ready to go. We'll be doing a site visit and taking some photos and tweeting from Clontarf. So that'll be something to look forward to. So moving on to Tuesday now, there was a RNS for Sovereign Metals, one that we've kind of mentioned them. Obviously, we mentioned them last week when we talked to CMET, Capital Metals, because they're in the rutile space. The RNS
they're in the erectile dysfunction market.
Yeah, rutile dysfunction. I think we've got. It is. I mean, this is like literally a Carlsberg RNS. The RNS was titled 1.8 billion ton JORC resource confirms Caerus as the largest rutile deposit ever discovered. Now let that one sink in. And it moved. I mean, it was sat around the sort of 30p mark. And actually, it was quite interesting because there was a telltale sign on this, and we discussed this with the CCO. There was an ASX, because it's dual listed. It's on the Australian Stock Exchange as well. It was a trading halt announced at something like, I don't know, the day before the RNS came out. So it was also there was a chance for people to go, oh wow, why else would a stock suspend or halt trading? Is because the mother of all news was due. So I looked on LSE and people were loading up, going, oh, but it can only mean one thing. It's got to be, it's got to be a big upgrade in the JORC. And sure enough, 7 a.m. lands and bang, that 1.8 billion ton JORC resource confirming Caerus the world's largest rutile deposit. So, yeah, comments on that, what your thoughts on it and the valuation?
Yeah, an interview is coming for this one, isn't it? We're going to be putting it out for this in the future. But one of the references or silly comments in the broker note that came out was, and it's just come out, so if you want to check that one out, we'll probably put it out over the next few days as well in all the groups, that the amount of rutile and graphite that they found is equivalent to 26 million ounces of gold discovery.
Yeah.
And it's all on surface, digging it up.
Yeah.
Like, let that sink in. That's 5 times now Greatland gold.
Yeah. So just to add a little bit more to impact into the RNS, the second line of it was updated mineral resource estimate confirming Caerus as the world's largest rutile deposit and the second largest graphite deposit ever discovered as well. I mean, phenomenal.
That's a lot of pencils that you can make out of that, I tell you.
Yeah. So that was a good one, and obviously we'll bring a good pod. We're going to bring a podcast with Sovereign Metals in the coming weeks or the coming week. So we'll look out for that one. I think it's massively under the radar. We were looking yesterday at the the number of posts on the bulletin boards, the reactions to some of it, and there's not many people talking about it. So it's very, very under the radar.
It's going to go on a journey, but I think a very exciting journey. So it's one to look out for, I think.
So the next one I want to talk about was what was announced on Wednesday. And then this is, I mean, if this isn't a telltale sign, then, shoot me now. Carroll Resources, Brez, is pleased to announce that it's going to host a shareholder conference on Monday at midday UK time. Okay, so midday UK time Monday to discuss the company's updated JORC mineral resource. So basically, they're telling you that there's a JORC update coming on Monday, right? So
shock horror. It didn't come out on Friday. So then, what day is it going to come out?
So you've had approximately 48 hours to load up on Brez ahead of the JORC update, basically.
So if you haven't, it's your own fault, basically, because they told you.
Yeah, you're not going to get chance Monday morning at 7 a.m. basically when it comes out.
You are going to get chance, but you're going to pay a bit more, I think. And the reality is that, again, that's a hell of a resource, isn't it?
Massive resource. And I like the fact they're going to be in production in the, next year. That's the aim, is to start very small, modular, and build it up. 25,000 tons, isn't it? The first plant.
Yeah, it's graphite as well, isn't it? So it's like, again, what we're talking about here is EV batteries and all the other needs of graphite, because there are huge numbers of requirements for this stuff.
Yeah.
And, you don't just need the base metals, you need graphite. There's more graphite in a battery than there is anything else. Okay. Yeah, I think Brez is going to have a good time. And when we're talking about graphite, it probably brings us quite neatly onto the whole coal situation.
Yeah.
We've had Contango had first coal. We didn't really talk about it last week, but they had first coal there in Lobo, is it? Or Lubu, or whatever they call it. In Lubu in Zimbabwe. Massive resource, like billions of tons of coal. And they've got offtake agreements that they're talking to, or off-takers they're talking to, I think, in South Africa. And the wash plant should be starting to be built this next few months, and be ready to have washed coal in the next period of time, which then they can start selling. And basically, this is a gearing up story, if you think about it. I mean, it's really totally de-risked now. The coal's there. They're basically going to be digging it out the ground, washing it, selling it, and making money. And on top of that, they've got the gold project in Mali. I think Carl talked about that's where he was headed after Zimbabwe. And then again, on the coal situation, I was going to say then on the coal train, we're talking about Ben. And it's like choo-choo, should be coming fairly shortly. I think they've got to get the last inspection sorted out. And then there should be a big train full of coal on regular basis leaving the station. And probably $4 million or more landing in the bank account every time they send a train, I think is the basic deal. Or every month, maybe not every train. Anyway, Ben is going to be very exciting in the next while, because it should just become this huge cash cow that we've all talked about.
Yeah, I mean, Ben for me has been just such an excellent share. It's probably been one of the best I've ever been, really seen in terms of the performance. Obviously, solid IPO, 10p. It's tested a pound, 99p high. It hasn't broken through, but I think it's only a matter of time. It finished Friday at 91p as I think an uncrossing trade. I've been sharing some of the videos from the site of the wash plant and actually seeing the washed coal in the actual wash plant, which is fantastic to see. So it's great to see these companies actually delivering what they say they're going to do. Adam's always been that man who's under promise and over deliver, and he has done. He's done that. He's delivered, pretty much on time all the way, exactly what he said he was going to do. So yeah, very exciting. And again, at the end of April, beginning of May, we've booked the flights. We're going to go to Ben's Creek in West Virginia. That's something to look forward to and actually see the wash plant.
4 weeks today, we will be in New York.
Yeah. And Wall Street. We're going to have a look around Wall Street, do the financial district, and then head down on a road trip to West Virginia. And obviously, we're going to have, I think there's a couple of investors who are going to be joining us as well. So if anybody wants to come to site who's listening, then please reach out to us. Obviously make your own way over, but we'll meet us there for sure, and we'll buy you a few drinks. Obviously Coca-Cola for Kev, but anything a bit stronger, I'm your man. And looking forward to it. But I mean, I've seen some videos of the chief financial officer on site as well, who's been there, and you've seen them in the little low carts, like going underground. So you better get your get running, Kev, because I don't know whether both of us, whether we're actually going to fit into those overalls.
I'm not sure I'm going to fit in those overalls, and my claustrophobia is definitely not going to fit in those overalls.
So what you're saying is you're not going to be up for going into the mine.
I'll take the photographs. We'll see. But I mean, from an investment case, we're just going down this story of producing, probably in terms of $100 million a year in EBITDA. You got to be talking about 8 to 10 as a PE on that amount. So you should be talking at 10, £750 million valuation or £600 million valuation. And I think we're currently at 300 million. Yeah. So it's got a long way to go. And that really is only the first stage of production. The other one that I was going to mention was EME, Imperium. Obviously, the drill bits started, I think, or about to start. And, will they hit oil is the question. It seems like everybody's almost certain they're going to hit oil, but let's see. That's going to be an exciting next 7 to 14 days.
It's one that I tend not to sort of dabble too much in oil and gas stocks these days, just because of the whole, flip of a coin, really, isn't it? It's a binary outcome. It's either a commercial well or it's not a commercial well. That's the way I look at it. It's either a duster or it's the mother of all, as a mother lode. So, and I think the chance of success on this one is something like 40 to 50%, which is actually very high. I don't think you can get much more than 40 to 50% as a geological chance of success in these wells. We've talked about this in the past. So I'm very confident that they are going to hit. But as you say, for me, obviously you'd have to put in a small position, but I know some people who are very, very, very heavily loaded in their portfolios on this one. And I'm just concerned. I don't want to see that duster. I hate it because I've seen 80%, 90% wiped off a stock's valuation on a single duster, and it's not funny. I mean, what it does offer obviously is a great opportunity to load up if you can buy in on that drop in the morning, because generally they do recover quite well. But look at ADV Energy as an example. That a lot of people got burnt on that ADV Energy stock beginning about 2 or 3 months. Yeah, it was the beginning of the year, probably end of January. Everybody was loaded up. I know people had £500,000 in there and they lost it. And it literally went from, I think it was about 5-6p down to sort of 0.2 or something. It literally dropped 80 to 85%. And John Story, of course, was loaded in that one, wasn't he? And I think he lost a fortune, unfortunately.
The interesting thing, coming back to Imperium, is that they've got this gas deal that they're also going to be doing. And is it Dungai or something like this? Don't ask me to pronounce it because I'm crap with names anyway. But basically, from what I've heard and read and understood, that a very, very large part of the current market cap of that company should be covered by this deal. So I almost think you've got a bit of a free hit with this. I don't think it's going to drop in the way that you're talking about, even if they don't get the oil. But yeah, we have to say it would be sensible if it starts to really rocket that you take some off the table and wait for the decision on some of it, you know. But that's people's choices, obviously. The last thing I was going to talk about really was the FSA, Food Standards Agency, has finally come out with getting its act together with the whole CBD thing. Both Chill and Life, the two we're looking at in the past, have had the oils and consumables passed to the next stage. Some press coming out saying all sorts of rubbish.
Did you read that? I've just read the Times article this morning. Have you read it?
Yeah,
shocking.
With a picture of the boxer guy as well.
Yeah, but the crazy part of that is, right, they're saying that there is going to be a lot of companies who are going to have to pull their product from the shelf, even in some of the Boots range and Holland and Barrow. Okay, they haven't been licensed. If you're not on the list, you've not been fully approved, you will have to remove your product from the shelf. Okay, now there's one product on there that we've talked about in the past, CBX Cellular Goods. Okay, now they're not on the list and haven't actually, if you read the article, they're actually referenced cellular goods because David Beckham's obviously referenced in the article. And what the worrying part of that is CBX are reselling or rebranding the Pure Is range, which is a McCoy range, CMH. And actually, they have been approved. So they've got the articles all wrong. I fear that what's going to happen on Monday morning is CBX is going to get absolutely sold off on that basis of the article. And that's wrong because it's misinformation.
Yeah, but even the pictures and stuff were misinformation because there was live picture of our ex-world champion, whatever his name is, Anthony Joshua, in the article, I think. And effectively, life has been accepted. You know, it's okay, and none of their products were delisted, and the same with Chill. They were all more than happy to go to the next stage. All the paperwork was in place, and now they will go to another level of testing, and then they will be officially accepted. I think in Chill's case, they're waiting for the official acceptance before they launch their products completely in the UK, I think. In terms of Life, they've been selling them for a good while already. In fact, many years, I think. And they have in-house testing and all sorts of things already, I think, which is much more than most of the companies involved. So, yeah, it should be seen as extremely good news. But it wasn't really accepted that way in the market because Life's been battered by other circumstances, and Chill also just there's been no news. So, the same situation. So, from the lows that these companies are at, and I'm talking about CBD and these type of things in general, there's got to be some bargains out there. You've got to obviously choose the right ones, but there's some bargains out there.
Let's talk about, there's one that listed, but we're moving on to Friday now. There was a newcomer to the market.
Yes.
Aura Renewable Acquisitions is ARA.L is the ticker. And they're actually they've joined the standard segment of the official list. So they're their main market effectively. And what they're going to do is they're going to pursue opportunities to acquire businesses in the renewable energy sector. And they're going to intending to consider opportunities within the renewable energy, focus on businesses operating in the global renewable energy sector supply chain, particularly in wind, solar, biomass, which is all hot topic. I mean, we've talked about hydrogen plays in the past, hydrogen supply chain ranging from raw materials, resourcing to power generation. And the thing that got me really interested in this one, and I'm sure you'd agree, is they raised £1 million at the time of IPO, and they actually listed the first day of trading was on Friday, and they've got a market cap of £1 million. Now, remember the rule change last year? I think it was the back end of last year. The city made some changes, or the FCA made some changes to overhaul the UK listing rules, and that came into force. And what they effectively said is that on the main market, a company must have a valuation of £30 million to actually be listed and chosen on that platform. If they didn't have that valuation, then the other alternatives are obviously the AIM market or the Aquis growth market, which is trying to encourage the smaller companies from the 700,000 Now, the minimum before that was £700,000 cap. So get that in your mind. So 700,000, they shifted the goalpost to 30 million. And that was the new threshold. So Aura Renewables have only got a market cap of 1 million and they're on the main market. Now, obviously, the reason why they're on there with that valuation is because when they started the process, they changed the rules. So effectively, they got in on the fact that the prospectus was submitted during the rule change announcement so that they were allowed to list with that valuation. Now, what does that mean, Kev? Do you think that means that they could be valued anywhere from 1 million to 30 million now because they're effectively a SPAC and a cash shell?
Yeah, I think 30 million is a bit of a stretch, but I think to say that they could be valued between 3, 4, 5 million seems very realistic, because you would need to raise 30 million to be in the same position as them. Now, we have had a discussion actually with Harmony Capital, who are the main backers behind this as well. So never mind the SPAC situation, the Harmony Capital thing in the future, these guys are going to be extremely well backed to find the right deals and put the right deals in this. But there is a short-term opportunity here because, I mean, you've seen some of the SPACs that have come on the market in the last while, and they've been worth several £1 million, whether it's 2, 3, 4, 5 million pounds. And these guys have got £1 million in cash. So, yeah, it was up 70% on Friday. So it finished at 17p, I think it was, and started at 10p. So, but I can see 30, 40p probably in the next couple of weeks easy, because it's very tightly held.
The thing with it is, as you say, is it's very unusual to get a company valuation of 1,050,000 or you call it a million, just for argument's sake, £1 million cash, £1 million cap. Obviously, that was the value at the IPO at 10p, and it finished rightly, as you say, at the 17 pence mark or something, around that, so 70% up. But the other thing to note is that there wasn't many people trading it on Friday, simply because a lot of these brokers, the IIs of this world, the Hargreaves Lansdowne, just didn't have it listed. We've seen that so many times where you go and buy a stock and it's not available. So I think next week we'll start to see more people dripping into it, because you can actually trade it, I think, from next week now. I saw on II that it wasn't listed on the search, but if you went in there and typed ARA and then hit the tab button on your computer, you could then trade it. You could actually buy that through the II platform. And I'm pretty sure that Hargreaves Lansdowne, you couldn't trade it on the app, but you could trade it on the computer, via the computer webpage, rather, So I think you'll see more liquidity. And I just don't think it's going to be that long. I get the feeling that it's not going to be that long before they do make some sort of acquisition. I mean, they've been planning this for quite a long time, haven't they, in terms of the actual listing? It's been going on for quite some time now. All right, on that note, have a great weekend, and we'll catch up in a week.
Yep, thank you.
This podcast was brought to you by Roast PR Limited. If you would like to appear on a future episode of The Sunday Roast, please email admin@thesundayroast.net.